Hi, I have your file in front of me and let's try to go through all the steps, but I'm going to condense the steps into a little bit easier process. The very first thing I'm going to do is put all your parts into one folder. Okay, that's like, let's just do that right now. So I'm going to shift click all the parts because it was real easy to click them now because there's nothing in the way. And I'm going to make a new folder and call it parts. Okay. Now, turn off parts. Okay, so I've decided that in the blank one, and I'm going to turn off the main one. I'm going to call this main now, just for a minute. We're going to take out the white that's in the background rather than trying to do it so many different times. And I'm going to have to do it in the hair too that's in the parts, because if you remember, that's what we had to do. So I'm going to use the magic wand at a tolerance of 20. I'm going to turn it down to 10 excuse me, in a minute. But you're going to see that when I click on this, it grabs all the white. Now you remember what we did each time was select, modify, expand by 2 pixels and feather by 1 pixel. Now, I'm just going to hit the delete key. Okay, so now you can see how I have a checkerboard background, but just to check, I'm going to deselect, make a new layer, and you remember we filled it with kind of like a blue. So I'm just going to fill it with a blue just so I can check and see how bad the cutout was. Okay, so Alt backspace. Now, what I decided was that we needed 2 magic wands. So I'm going to move the tolerance down to 10. And I'm going to zoom in to this light value right here, and I'm going to click it. Okay? Actually, leave it at 20. Leave it at 20, please. Zoom in and grab that light value. Okay, perfect. Now, just feather it. You don't have to expand. Well, maybe we do. So let's go to select, modify, expand. Once this process is done, it'll go pretty fast. Select, modify, feather by 1, and just hit the delete key. Okay, so look at how nice that actually did that by doing it twice. Okay, and I also figured out a way to cover up this blue real fast. Okay, with a real simple shape, not the shape that we did in the first place. That's okay though. So now I've done something here. But I told you we're going to take it off of the hair. So I'm going to turn off this, open up all the parts, and let's finish and do it the same thing to the hair. Okay, so I'm going to right hand click on your hair and apply that layer mask. Good. Let's do the same thing on the magic wand. Click, make sure you're on the image, of course. One more time, select, expand by 2, select, feather by 1, and just hit the delete key. Okay, now we have to zoom in, remember? And I'm going to grab this light area. Now, let's just feather that by 1, okay? Maybe I should go to select, modify, expand by 2, select, modify, feather by 1, and now just hit the delete key. So you can see how good, let me Z back because that didn't take away a whole lot. And let me hit the delete key again. Okay, I don't know why, but it didn't delete. Okay, now it did. For some reason, it didn't delete very well. Okay, now you remember we also did the same thing to the red. Okay, so I am going to go in here and grab that red pixel right there and just feather by 1. I don't need to expand it because there's something else we have to do. So feather by 1 and hit the delete key. And then, do you remember how this was all left over on the hand? Okay, we're gonna deselect and click that red, and I'm gonna hit the delete key. Okay, now we're gonna click on this red. So let me go click on that red and hit the delete key. Now, that should help, okay, and that should, I'll have to do one more thing to get rid of this over the hand, just so I do a good job on it. I do remember what I had to do, so if you want to follow my direction, I'm not going to wait. So look at how I can surround all of this, just like this, right across like this. Okay. Now let's feather that by 5 pixels. So just feather it by 5 and hit the delete key. Make sure you're on the hair image. And now that will be totally ready for when the hand gets over there. Okay, that's perfect. And when we get it in the composite, you see the white that's over here, we're going to wait to get rid of that. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to close the parts layer, turn it off, turn back on the main one that you and me took out the white background on just now, which is much easier. And I've made a path. I actually drew a path, and I want to show you. See how I drew a path that was all the way around the file? Look, I'm going to hit the P key and hold Control-Alt. See how I drew a path that was bigger than the outside? I just took it from here straight to the chin, but this time I drew the chin accurately. And look at how I went around the thumb and the fingers. Perfect. Now, that was so much easier. Now I can make one selection of that. Okay, one selection. Let's click and just hit Control-J. And now let's call this body. Now we make a selection of it again. So make a selection of the path. Let's inverse it. Now let's click on the main, hit Control-J, move it above the body, and call it head. Now let's shrink the body. So we click on the body, make sure everything is deselected, good, Control-T, and shrink to your heart's content. Okay, I'm gonna, that was confusing because I didn't turn off the main one underneath. Okay, so now that's off, this is off. So I'm clicking on the body, now it'll make more sense. I just didn't have that off. And I'm gonna shrink it. Then I'm gonna stick this underneath just like this. Right there. A little bit farther down like this. Right there. Okay, that looks good. Now, let's go, and I figured out, because I've done this a couple times, that I'm going to turn on your hair. I'm going to turn on your hair right there. And we're going to cover up these blue areas much easier. Okay? But first, I'm going to click on the hair. Remember the little section of hair that we added right over here? Watch how easy this is going to be. So I'm just going to take the lasso, and I'm going to lasso around this whole big mass of hair right over here. See how cool that is? Make sure you're selected on that layer, hit Control-J, and now you have this leftover hair, which I can put over here. Now, it goes all the way down below the body. Good. Now I'll move it up. Now look, that solved everything. That just made it really pretty. Now all we have to do is soften the edge. So we click, add a layer mask, hit your paintbrush. I'm painting at 15. You even knew that, 15, because you told me. And all the way soft. And let's soften the edge of that. So you can see how I'm softening the edge of that hair. And it's going to look real pretty. And it's going to just be a nice addition to the hair. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing this. But remember that we clicked to the hair, added a new layer mask, right? And we softened the edge of the hair, excuse me, and we went around the whole head like this. Tina, I'm going to put it up to 20 just to get it. Oops, I made it 2. Okay, that's 20. I'm just going to do it a little faster. So I'm not going to do any more than what I've done here. You can go around the whole head and soften the edge of that hair, because that's really going to make it work when we get it into the composite, into that neat background that you chose. Okay, so you can see, I'm probably stubborn and I don't want to stop, but you can see how, and I'll make the brush bigger so I'll just get this done faster. But your job is to go around and soften the whole edge of this. Okay, you can see how nice that looks now. Okay, remember I said we're going to use a black shape to cover up certain things. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. we only have to fill in these blue areas, so just make a big shape like this. Make it go below the body, so let's go click a new layer and just call it black. As long as it's below the body, we're good. So now I'm going to make this blue be a dark black and just fill it up. Alt backspace. Now you can see how that filled that up really nice. Now let's click to the body. Remember these parts here that we didn't want? So as long as we're on the body, I'm going to take the magic wand, the lasso. I'm going to round this off, come around like this, and just hit the delete key. Let's go over to this side, round off her elbow, take it off. Now deselect, just deselect. Remember this part here that was on the hair? So I got to go back to the hair image, surround that, and hit the delete key. Now we're ready to bring her into that other background. Okay? I mean, she looks great. She really does. I think that hair back there works out. Her smaller body works out. Getting rid of the sweater and the hair worked out really nice. So we need to make that composite layer. So what do? I'm going to close your parts. Everything is visible, right? So now I'm going to click to parts and shift click all the way down to the hair and that little black edge. So all of these need to be copy merged. So Control Alt E. Now turn off all that other stuff. That's the one we bring into that other file. So let's open up that composite one, because that's where that file was, right there, the composite PSD. And let's turn this off, and voila, there is the main one. So I'm going to right-hand click. Actually, remember we went to image and image size, and we made it 9 by whatever it came out to be, 5.065, and 200 ppi. Okay, I'm going to right-hand click on that bottom layer, which is the one that she's in still, and make a new one. That's what I want you to do. Now I can close this one and not save it. Okay, now I'm in this new one right here. Okay, no, I'm not. I'm not yet. Don't save that one. And let's go to this one. Whoops. Guess what? I closed it. So let's go back to composite. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Okay, so I can't believe I did that. So let's turn all this off. Do it again, Brian, because you messed up. Let's go to a new file and say OK. Now, oh, you know what? I was in the new file. That was silly. So I'm going to duplicate that layer so I don't mess up the original. And now it's still the image size that I need it to be. So let's surround Julia with that lasso. Remember, you could hold the shift key and make it bigger if you have to. Let's just come around her hand just like this. Don't get rid of the ashtray. And let's go right up and over the flower, and then take her arms straight up like this, around her little shoulder, around that white thing, around her hair, and let's now get rid of her from that one. So let's go Edit, Fill with Content Aware. Okay, now as weird as that is, you remember how weird that is, take the M key and make a marquee of that section right here, right there. Okay, now make sure you're on the layer, Control J, now Control T. Hold the Shift key and move it over. Now that'll be good enough, honestly. If we take a layer mask and our paintbrush with black and we soften this edge right there. So now that works. Okay, that works fine right there. Let me get rid of this. You can see how that was a pretty good piece to get rid of all that. Okay, now I'm going to save it. It's going to make a PSD file. and I'll save this as composite 3 because this is my third attempt. So let's go here. Now let's go bring Julia into this file. All right, we're almost done. So let's go to Julia, take the copy merged one right here, duplicate it to that composite number 3. Now let's go to composite number 3, which is right there. Back off on the file. I was making sure I was on that layer. Hit Control T, shrink her a little bit more. Put her over here where she needs to go. A little bit more. Okay. Put her elbows down on the table. Just like that. Now, all you really need to do to this is add a layer mask. Now watch how simple this is going to be to soften her edges. Okay? I'm at 20%. So if I want to, I can go around this edge really nice. That's what I want you to do. And I want you to soften her sweater. Look at how nice I'm doing that. You'll get good with your brush if you just soften that edge. Now I'm not going to go around any more than what I did, but you should, okay, to soften that edge real nice. Now around her hair, look, if we just make the brush bigger, look, it just melts it all the way. It just looks really good in that background. And that looks totally natural. I mean, as weird as she looks with this caricature file, look at how good this is. Now you remember how we have to use the lasso to get rid of those funny white shapes that were left over. Okay, so I'm going to take the lasso around that big white shape, come all the way down like this, make a circle around it, and just hit delete. Whoops. Nothing deleted because I'm on the mask. So that's a good thing to show you. Click to the image, Brian, and hit delete. Thank you. Now let's marquee this with, not marquee it, let's lasso it, whatever you want to say. Hit the delete key, and look. Now, you need to soften. So go back to the layer mask, hit your B key, and soften that hair. Just soften the edge. So you can see even just that quick, look at how nice that's starting to look. Okay, look how nice. And I'm going around the whole thing right here, and you can see that she looks good in that background. She looks like she belongs there. Life is good. Now the last thing is, do you remember what we did here? Click to your image, hit your S key, make sure you're on the image, sample a dark, and just spot these away so they're not so obvious. Because when we back off, this will look really super good. Okay, so that's all I want you to do. Hopefully this helped. And you can use the mask and your paintbrush, same thing, to soften this edge down here. Look at how I could soften this, come around the bottom, so her elbow looks like it's actually on the counter. Soften the edge of those fingers. Come over here, soften this a little bit, just a little bit like that. So now she looks like she's actually resting on that counter. It's perfect. It's actually beautiful. It's really a good job. So I'm going to save the file and let me know if you need anything else.